I've been being nagged for this, and I said I was gonna do it. So this is my entire season review of Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes Season One. Um, People, my brother asked me this. He was like, I saw your top 10 list. You had this number. What he said? You had this number 5. He was like, does it jump anything on that list now that season 1 is over? I don't know if it jumps anything, but it's nipping at the heels of Superman animated series. If the next season is strong, I might put it ahead of that. I'm gonna be honest with you. Um, Man, this was amazing. Like, this entire season is amazing. There's not, with the exception of one episode, there's not an episode that's lower than good in this entire season. Like, everything, people say that people's complaint about this before the whole season was done is that they strung along too many storylines. Like, too many things were going on at the time. But 90% of those questions were answered in this season. There's a few that weren't, but 90% of them were answered in this season, and they set up a lot of things for next season also. Like, there's a great episode where one of my favorites when they have the cosmic cube. AIM has the cosmic cube, and Baron Strucker wants it now because Baron Strucker, he wants to use it because AIM told him it did what it did. And he knew they were lying because it was another episode. Okay, fuck. Let me synopsis of the whole season. All right, season starts and there's a breakout in the cube, the vault, the big house, and the raft. There's a big breakout. 74 villains, get free or whatever. This brings the team together. This brings most of the team together because it's a big threat. They all do something about it. If you want my synopsis on those two episodes, watch my video on them. But it brings the team together. But the whole season, they have no idea who started the breakout. You know what I mean? Us as viewers, we kind of know who did because we can see. I don't want to ruin it. I'm probably going to ruin it, but I'm trying not to. And we end up seeing it, but they don't know. You know what I mean? Like the heroes, like Thor, Iron Man, Captain America. Nobody knows, you know what I mean? And along the way, they add more. Like when the season first starts, the heroes on the team are Thor, Iron Man, Wasp, Giant Man, and the Hulk. And as the show goes along, they add Captain America, Black Panther, and Hawkeye. And they just, different things happen. The team shows dissension and all this stuff, but in the end, they all come together for an equal cause. And the show is very well written. There's a lot of good dialogue between all the characters. Hulk is probably when it comes to dialogue, it's probably best on the show. His one-liners are some of the most memorable parts of this show. I love the way Thor is handled. If you like the movie Thor, and you don't read comic books or whatever, I would definitely recommend seeing this show because if you like how Chris Hemsworth played Thor, this is a good representation of what Chris Hemsworth did as Thor. So I would definitely recommend checking this out. Who else was good? What else is good about the show? There's I have no real issue with the show, to be honest with you. Like, I can't think of any true flaw that I really can say about the show. A lot of people say the voice actor for Iron Man, as I said in my other video. The voice actor for Iron Man is he tries too hard to sound like Robert Downey Jr. But when you first watch the show, you notice it. But then, as the show goes along, dude really does do a good job. Like, even though he's trying to sound like Robert Downey Jr., he does a good job. Some of the overarching storylines of the show, Captain America after he gets unfrozen, him pretty much struggling to come to grips with the fact that he's in a different time now, and Bucky is he passed on, so we thought. That's all I'll say. But he passed on, and he's trying to cope with it. You know what I mean? And also, him in the very first episode he comes back. I thought they did this greatly. You see during the breakout Baron Zemo, and Baron Zemo was at the time, at least according to this storyline, was the leader of Hydra. back in back in Cap's time. He was the the Grandmaster of Hydra, and you know as soon as Cap comes back, the first person the first enemy that he faces is Baron Zemo, because Baron Zemo finds out from during the breakout or whatever, all the villains escape. Baron Zemo is one of the ones that escape. So naturally, and Baron Strucker was the head of Hydra. While Baron Strucker was the head of Hydra. You know what I mean? And while Zemo was locked up in the raft. So naturally Baron Zemo wants his spot back or whatever. But as he's going to go get it back, one of the Hydra soldiers run in, and they tell Baron Strucker, Captain America is alive. Zemo sees it, and he just leaves. And then Strucker asks, where you going? And he was like, I don't give a shit about this anymore. Not in those words, but I want Captain America. I thought they handled that well. Like, as soon as Cap come back, because Cap's questioning whether he even belongs in this time, whether there's even a place for him in this time, whether they even need him in this time. And the first threat that he faces is an old enemy. You know what I mean? I thought that was handled extremely well. Maybe I'm overthinking that. You know what I mean? Maybe the average viewer won't think about it that way. But I did, because I'm a huge fan of every character on this show, except Hank Pym. And let me get to Hank Pym. This might be a long video because I really love this show. I'm gonna be real. I did not like Hank Pym at all until I watched this show, because I always thought that minus the whole wife beater thing that everybody was talking about. Mine is, aside from that, I just didn't like him because I thought he was useless. I thought he was just a good scientist, but who needs a guy that can shrink and all that stuff. But honestly, a lot of the enemies that they faced in this show, they would not have been able to defeat without Hank Pym. Like, same episode I was just talking about with Captain America, Armin Zola, who if you read comics, you know what that is. Scientist from the World War II days. He also worked on many experiments for Hydra, things like that. And he worked on this organic monster. It was like almost like a snot looking type monster, and he worked on it for Zemo. And Hank Pym, Wasp's stingers were the only ones that were affecting the creature at all. Hank noticed this, and he was like, he did some shit. I don't feel like explaining, because I'm not a scientist, but he noticed it and he adapted and helped everyone else defeat this monster because of his scientific viewpoint. In the first two episodes, when they fight Graviton, I'm going to ruin that. When they fight, because I didn't in the other video, and the episode has been out for so long. you know what I'm saying? Those two episodes have been out for so long, since October of last year. So when they fight Graviton in the first two episodes, they all can't move because Graviton's pushing gravity down. But Hulk starts to move because he's the Hulk. He's a beast like that. But in order for everyone else to get up, Hank couldn't move, but his helmet allows him to talk to the insects in the area. So he talks to the ants, and the ants, they gather, and then they all bite Graviton, and that distracts him for just a split second, to where he doesn't concentrate his powers anymore on the heroes laying down, rather the ants on him. So that gives them a chance to recover and all attack Graviton. Pretty much Hank Pym is not as useless as I thought he was. You know what I mean? And I just never liked the dude. But now I have minus Mighty Avengers, I really liked him in that. But minus that, I have a newfound appreciation for Hank Pym. That's just being honest. Let me think. What else can I talk about? The villains in this show. The villains are, I thought all of them were handled well. Like, honestly, Wonder Man, who I usually don't like either, like, as a villain in this show, I really feel like you really feel sorry for the dude. Like, his whole storyline is that his company is going out of business, and Tony, Iron Man, he starts buying up shares of the company, and at the beginning of his episode, he's sitting in Tony's office telling him, "Hey, please don't do this. If you do this, it'll ruin me. You know what I mean? I need, I need this money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I built this company from the ground up. Please don't do this." And then Tony being, the jerk that he is, he was like, "It's already done." All this stuff like But at the end of the episode, you find out that Tony wasn't really being a jerk, but his whole demeanor made it seem like he was being a jerk. And meanwhile, this dude is in the wrong state of mind anyway. So he hears Tony say that, and he just assumes that, oh man, I'm ruined. You know what I mean? And he does something that ruins his life. You know what I mean? So but then you feel bad for the dude. Like, as you see him, you feel bad for him. There's too many cameos to name in this. I just think of some of the big ones. The Fantastic Four, like all of them except Sue Storm. So many villains that hadn't said a word, or maybe said like a few words, are in this show. Malekith, the curses in this show, the Dark Elf. Man, it's so many cameos. Lady Sif, the Warriors 3, Balder the Brave, Crimson Dynamo. They have the Masters of Evil in this show. By the way, that's my favorite episode. Okay, I'm gonna ruin some of this shit. Pretty much, they would face a new enemy all the time in this show. Like in the Wonder Man episode, they face Wonder Man. And let me start. Okay, the first episode after the breakout. Not exactly, but it is, because the first 4 episodes are just the micro episodes put together. Like the 4 episodes after the breakout are just the micro episodes put together for each character. But the first storyline episode after the breakout is this episode where the Enchantress comes to the Avengers mansion and controls the Hulk and makes him fight the Avengers. And also another thing, I'm glad they got that out of the way, because they had to do that at some point in the series, and I'm glad they just did that early to get it out of the way. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, like she controls him and he fights them or whatever, and she loses, she goes back to Asgard, whatever, this, that, and the third. Then in the next episode, they find Captain. That's the Captain America episode where they they melt him out of the ice and he wakes up and all that stuff. But at the end of that episode, after Cap defeats Zemo's walking through the lab because he's pissed because Armin Zola gave him that monster, that organic monster I was just telling you about. He's pissed. He's like, Zola, where are you? I need to talk to you. All this stuff. What happened to my monster? Blah blah blah. Then, as he walks through the lab, he sees Zola just beat up. And then the Executioner, Enchantress's bodyguard. So I'm assuming that everybody on this channel knows enough about comic books that this is not a foreign language, okay? But yeah, he sees Armin Zola beat up, and then Enchantress and the Executioner, Scourge the Executioner, are there, and Enchantress says to to Zemo, she's like, "I got a proposition for you," and Zemo has like this look on his face, like, "Oh, Then in the next episode, the Wonder Man episode, Simon Williams, Wonder Man, I was just telling you about how he had his company and all that stuff. Well, at the end of the episode, I'm gonna ruin this too. He like spontaneously combusts, like he like disintegrates. You know what I mean? And he's thought to be dead. Tony's all upset and all this stuff. I'm not gonna tell you why, but he's upset. And at the end of the episode, all of a sudden, Wonder Man is, his body is back together. He's still, what happens to him, I don't want to ruin it, but he's still the way he is. And he's like, "What's going on? Am I dead? Am I alive?" And then Enchantress is there, and then she was like, Enchantress and Zemo are there together, and she's like, "No, you're alive, but and it'll stay that way as long as my magic allows it. But you just have to do one thing for me: destroy the Avengers." Okay. I didn't like this though. In the comic book that ties in with the show, Crimson Dynamo's in it. He fights the Avengers. He loses. Then he's upset. He's like, "I want my revenge." is this bull and all this stuff. Then Zemo, Enchantress, and Wonder Man come to his lair, and they tell him, I have a proposition for you. We need to talk. You know what I mean? Then, and what is it? Not Everything Is Wonderful, but what's next? Panther's Quest is next. That's when Black Panther joins the team. Black Panther joins the team, Panther's Quest, and all that. Then it's an episode called Gamma World, a 2-part episode with the leader, and he pretty much uses this Gamma Dome to turn all these people into Gamma zombies. You know what I mean? It's wild. Okay, after he does that, he's not Gamma zombies, but like monsters. You know what I mean? And he's defeated. It's good guys win. It's a superhero show. But the Abomination, Emil Blonsky, was helping him out. You know what I mean? And in that episode, at the end of that episode, the Hulk and Blonsky, they're fighting like usual. And then, Blonsky has this thing that has him superpowered or whatever. So where he's just way stronger than the Hulk. He's beating the hell out of him. But Hawkeye, has this arrow that nullifies that gamma boost. And then, Hulk gets up and he punches the hell out of him. Like Blonsky goes flying. And then after they defeat the leader or whatever, you think the episode's over. But then you see Blonsky crawling through this desert. And then you see a shadow above him, and he looks up, and there's Zemo, Crimson Dynamo, Wonder Man, Enchantress, and Scourge the Executioner all right there. And Zemo looks at him, he's like, "Hello, Mr. Blonsky." Then the next episode is called Masters of Evil. You know what I mean? Pretty much what I'm saying is that this show builds everything perfectly. Kang the Conqueror is in this show, okay? And in the first episode he appears in, which is a Captain America, pretty much an origin story. Why Captain America is on this show. Kang is trying to find out, his reality is dying. You know what I mean? And he sees that Captain America was in the 21st century. So way down the line, like episode 19. And what is episode? It's way down the line. I think it's like episode 17 or something like that. Kang finally appears in the series. You get what I'm saying? Like he's like, I have a message for Cap, and he tries to kill Captain America and all that stuff. But pretty much what I'm saying is this: if you want a show where everything builds upon this, and then the series finale, the last 3 episodes in the series, when we know who's behind pretty much everything, pretty much all the big stories going on in the series. You know who's behind them, and if you know me, you know I was excited about that. So, but you find out who's behind everything, and you find out how, and it's such a rewarding, how I did everything, even though you see it happening, what I mean, just to hear it explained and to see people, the hero's reaction to it is great. I'm talking too much though. This is probably, it was The Walking Dead, but now I'm waiting for the new season of that. And no, forget it. It was Symbionic Titan, which is Genndy Tartakovsky's, however you say his name, his newest cartoon. That was my favorite show on TV, but then Cartoon Network decided to cancel it like idiots. But this was always my second, arguably my first some weeks. You know what I mean? I really, really love this show. This show gets one of the highest recommendations you can get out of me. You know what I mean? I really, really love this show. If you go to my Twitter page, my background is pretty much the art of this show at the end of the theme song. And by the way, the theme song is my favorite theme song ever in history. So, for anything, like it gets you excited, but it gets your juices flowing, you know what I mean? And it's just, like when you hear it, you just can't help but, you know what I mean? Like it just, you're about to see just, and even if all that does not interest you, even if you don't know anything about comic books, the action scenes in this show are great. Some of the best I've ever seen. Like there's one scene I'm just gonna ruin because it made me mark out so hard. As you know, well, no, it's 2 scenes. I'm talking 2 scenes. as you know, Thor is the only one that can lift his hammer. As you know this, right? So in the episode Gamma World I was just talking about, he didn't have his hammer at first when the leader captures him and all his goons are beating him up. So Thor finally calls his hammer to him, and he grabs it. He was like, now things will change, villain, because now Mjolnir has returned to me, or something like that. He said, something in the Thor type voice. But then all of a sudden, the floor turns into goo, and like it wraps around him, and he's like, what type of trickery is this? And then the leader says to Thor, of course you got your hammer back. I let you get it. And then all of a sudden, a figure appears, and it's Absorbing Man, and he touches Mjolnir and absorbs it. Wild. I'm marked out like a punk for that. Like a punk for that. What's the other one? Oh yeah, in this episode where it has, I'm not going to explain the whole plot, but Hydra's in this one. What Hydra pretty much. Baron, I am going to explain the whole plot. Baron Strucker wants the Cosmic Cube to use it. And if you know, the Cosmic Cube is if you read comics, pretty much if you touch the Cosmic Cube, you get anything you wish for. You know what I mean? Right before he touches the cube, you see Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Hank outside. Ant-Man. Ant-Man shrinks and he jumps on one of Hawkeye's arrows. And it's like way, like it's like at least a block away. It's a bunch of buildings and all sorts of stuff in the way. And then Hank asks Clint, Hawkeye. He asks him like, "You sure you can hit this shot?" And then Black Widow tells him, "I've never seen him miss." And so that's all I'm gonna say. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. They pretty much. Fuck it. I'm gonna ruin it. He shoots the arrow. And it flies through all the buildings. And then Hank grows at the last possible second and hits Strucker with an uppercut. Like, words cannot do that scene justice. Like, you just gotta see. It's one of the most just amazing, just like, if that was in a movie, I would go nuts, pretty much. Like, that's just a crazy looking moment. It's real good. This show, like I said, highest recommendation. This is a 22-minute long video, y'all. But I'll let y'all later. Peace. Oh yeah, before I go, two things I haven't touched on. The animation style. A lot of people were like, this animation is cheap looking, and the characters look ridiculous and stuff like that. Although I kind of felt the same way when I first saw the trailer of the show. I won't even lie to you. You get used to it. Like, by the end of the show, I actually do really like the designs of all the characters, to be honest with you. Especially Thor. I really like the way Thor looks on this show. And the fight scenes are great. As I said, man, the animation in the fight scenes is great. Anybody that doesn't like the animation in the fights, they're just nitpicking. Simple as that. The fight scenes are awesome. Some of the best I've ever seen in a show. The only one I think tops it when it comes to like fight scenes in a show is probably Justice League Unlimited. But man, this is damn close. Like, for real. And another thing, this show is for, children, of course, and also for adults. Like, the thing is, there's a lot of old school like themes to this show, like a lot of old school comic book themes. And what is the one thing that can let you forgive maybe not so good story in a comic book? Any comic book fan knows this. What's one thing that may convince you? Oh, excuse me, I got a terrible stutter, as y'all know. What's one thing that may convince you to get the next issue of Arc, even if maybe the initial one wasn't the greatest, but one thing in the initial story made you think, I gotta get the next one? That's the cliffhanger. And this show has some of the best cliffhangers I've ever seen in my life. Like the last episode of season 1. When you see the last minute of that episode, yeah, that's all I'll say. Yeah, I don't want to ruin it, but the last minute of that episode, something insane happens. Insane happens. It's something they've been hyping up the whole season, pretty much. And when it happens, it's an amazing payoff. Like, once you see it, a lot of things make sense. Like, a lot of the reasons why a certain character thought that a certain character had something to do with things going bad for him in his life. Pretty much, it explains a lot. Okay, I'll holler at y'all later. Peace. This is officially the end of the video. Holla.